most of us, maybe we speak 3 or 4, we write 2, read and write 2, or we read and write 3, speak 5. It's a different combination, and that is why we wrote BIBA Multilingual. And the last 2 words that come after the colon, my request to the panelists has been to share their experiences of working in BIBA multilingual contexts. I won't take up more time. I'll now introduce the first person is Dr. Rubina Khan. She is a professor, Department of English at the University of Dhaka. Did I get the pronunciation right? And she is also president of what we in India know as BELTA, which is the Bangladesh English Language Teachers Association. Has got many successful initiatives. I think has been teaching for more than 20 years, though she hasn't mentioned it here. And lots of research training projects. I'm not doing a CV. Second person, I'm starting from outside our country. Remember, the Aditi is always to be valued. Dr. Purna Bahadur Kadel, he's been teaching at the Department of Education, Tribhuvan University in Nepal for again more than 20 years. He, I'm proud to say, got his PhD from EFL University not too long ago. One of our very good students. Then he's been editing NELTA, as an editor of NELTA from 17 and presented many papers. His special areas are teaching language through literature and teaching. Here I'm going to go in this order. That is a quick query to her. Okay, this is Kuheli. Hornby are on this. She's been teaching, she teaches in a school in Kolkata and therefore comes with loads of grassroots level experience of teaching students who are not very comfortable with learning through or even learning English. She's published with a range of publishers. I won't go into the details. Then we have, last but not the least, Dr. Dharmender Sheth. Dharmender is somebody very, very different. He's done something very valuable. He runs an English language training center called Fluent Linga in Surat. We all know that we have this parallel system of education, which are tuition centers, coaching centers, English language teaching centers. Here is somebody with years of experience of working at that level, wide range, worked at the non-formal sector, formal sector, corporate training, and therefore we thought it would be lovely to have somebody with very different experience talking about teaching English in multilingual contexts. Okay, now what is the order? I'm going to request Dr. Rubina to start first. Rubina first. I'm moving to first names. Purna second. Kuheli third. And Dharmender last. Each one of them will get about 5 to 7 minutes to speak. After which, we're throwing open to the audience. Summing up, bringing it all together is my job, but right at the end. Okay? So over to Rubina, yeah, they prefer to stand there and speak. I've said fine.
Thank you very much. It's really heartening to see a full house after lunch. My mentor, Dr. Christine, used to say, the afternoon sessions are termed as graveyard shifts because people are sleepy, they are yawning. So I do not like afternoon shifts, but it's lovely to see that this room is full and buzzing with people. Thank you. At the outset, I'd like to say that I take immense pride in being a multilingual speaker. I can speak 4 languages fluently: Bangla, English, Urdu, and Hindi. I can read Arabic, and I used to know a little bit of Persian at school, but I've lost that. Now, coming to the scenario in Bangladesh, Bangladesh has been known to be a monolingual country ever since its birth in 1971, and Bangla is the national and the official language of Bangladesh. I'm not going to trace the historical or the political developments, but I'm just going to very briefly talk about three situations, if you take into consideration three situations that we are also moving beyond multilingualism in Bangladesh. Now, a cultural survey shows that 16 regional varieties of Banglas are spoken in the greater districts of Chittagong, Kumilla, Sylhet, Noakhali, Pabna, and other districts. Then there are 45 or more indigenous groups which form linguistic minority in the country, and there exist 30 indigenous speech communities. In some of the regions of Bangladesh, for example, in the Chittagong Hill Tracts, some parts of Sylhet, Mymensingh, Rajshahi, Dinajpur, and tribal languages are spoken there. The third scenario is the existence of foreign languages in social, religious, and educational settings. Now, the people of Bangladesh, they use Bangla with its standard variety in formal settings and the local variety in informal settings. But in the educational sector, we also have two languages side by side. We have Bangla medium schools and we have English medium schools. In the Bangla medium schools, Bangla is the medium of instruction, and in the English medium schools, which are elitist schools, English is the medium of instruction. Now, at the school level, a monolingual policy exists. Bangla is spoken, even English is taught in Bangla, and this is a serious complaint from the parents and guardians that why is English being taught in Bangla. That is the scenario over there. Some English is used in the English classes, but to a very negligible extent. At the college level, which is higher secondary, grades 11, 12, it's kind of bilingual education. The teacher will speak in English as well as in Bangla. And at the tertiary level, the situation is different. I'm going to speak about my department. We speak in English all the time. Those teachers who try to speak in Bangla are criticized, and they are kind of English. But now in a globalized world, things are changing, and since we are moving beyond bilingualism to multilingualism, I think we should be encouraging all languages because all languages are powerful. And I have seen that if you know more than two languages, you are at an advantage, you are respected. Now, at the university level, since we teach in English, it is difficult because the multilingual situation does not exist in our classrooms. At the tertiary level, we do sometimes make efforts if the concepts are difficult to speak a little bit in Bangla, but very little Bangla because since it's the English department, as I said, we will be taken to task by other teachers also and criticized vehemently. I have two strategies which I would like to share with you for promoting a multilingual or bilingual classroom. One strategy I have used with a low resource classroom when I do workshops in the remote villages of Bangladesh and the remote regions is showing them a film in English, part of a film. It's not possible to show them a 3-hour frame, excerpts from a film, parts of a film. So they listen, and after they listen, whatever they understand, the schema is activated, they discuss in Bangla, and they again watch the film with subtitles, and they again discuss to see what they discussed earlier was right or wrong, and again they reformulate and they present to the class. This I have done in low resource classrooms. And for the tertiary level classrooms, in order to promote multilingualism, I believe we can use culture as I can use culture as a rich resource. I think heritage can be used as a rich resource in the classroom. Am I audible? Is the mic working? I'll put on my teacher's voice. It's pretty loud if this is not working. Anyway, so I think that culture can be negotiated and used as an excellent resource for promoting multilingualism in the tertiary level or at any level. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It is Dr. Gulabhani. I'm from Nepal. I have been teaching in tertiary level and master level.
Oh, he's doing this for what's He's in a back.
Master level for more than 50 years. Actually, I have been teaching English literature, English language through literature in most of the classes. Yes, Nepal is multilingual, multicultural, multi-religious, multi-ethical country. It has been just shifted from just monarchy to the democratic republic country, Nepal, after the second people's movement successful in 2006. Then you see we have feeling very comfortable regarding the multilingual education in Nepal. Actually, Nepal is also like a mountainous country. It has diverse, geographical, scenario here, and then that's why we have lots of languages there due to the geographical, geographical indifference and difficulties. Actually, yes, Nepal is also the very backward in terms of education as well, because of the not very competent teachers there, not professionally sound teachers are there. Uh, Government has also adopted multilingual education policy recently since 2006 onwards. And then see, education for all is also policy adopted by the government. I mean, to impart all of the, tribal, minority, and the indigenous groups of children. That's why it is also going in great prosperity. When I have been teaching the tertiary and then senior level. I mean, I also follow the multilingual education to impart the knowledge to them. And whenever I teach some of abstract ideas like novels, like kinds of novels, To Kill a Mockingbird, So Peaceful, this type of very abstract novel is very difficult to make the student understand. And then they also from the monolingual, backgrounds. Earlier, Nepali is like one language, one country. Monolingual Nepali is only one medium instructions. Only after 2006, government had also adopted the multilingual education. You see, now we have also very vibrant, very proactive students are also coming out, passing out from the, graduate and then it's just rule of multilingual education. Whenever the student feel very difficult to understand or even, I make the group of homogeneous of in terms of language, and then I also ask them to share the ideas, in terms of their, you can say, mother tongue, and then students share the ideas with the mother tongue, and then later on, you see, they come up with some solutions as well when they share the ideas, because in case of the world, and so I can solve some of the problem in the classroom also. So far the university concerned, Nepal has 11 universities. The oldest and the popular university of Nepal is the university where I have been working, and it has also the main source of imparting education to, tertiary level to the PhD levels. Even there also, even English medium is not adopted even in university also. Even you see in the faculty of science and even education, even arts also, except the department of English, education, in humanities. Only the medium of instruction of English is also adopted partially. Even in my department where I've been working in Central Department of Education, there you see only English medium is adopted in the Department of English, only the major subject. But compulsory subject like education, fund of education, psychology are taught in English. So in Nepali also. That's why students are not very competent in English. I mean, but I also adopted the middle person from school level. How can also fulfill his goals of medium instruction where the university hasn't adopted the medium instruction of English? You see, that's why there is some problems right now. The government are excited because newly, I mean, the elected government is also working hard to educate to reform some of the policies because Nepal was under the on party system for 30 years, and there was also the Arigag, Rana's Arigag for 104 years, like in Nepal, like India. You see, British Raj here was here. I mean, during the 104 years, British Raj, you see, Rana oligarchy, whatever, then there was only one, I mean, the language policy, one language, one, you see, one country, one bhasha, one base. I mean, like in Nepal, like our city also, I mean, the even Margulis, I mean, the declares of the minute. I mean, English is also adopted like a medium instruction, even in India, official language. And most of the vernacular languages, local language were, I mean, planned to destroy. Likewise in Nepal also, Woods Commission also was there, whose commission recommended that Nepali should be only medium instruction in Nepal. That's why our graduate, postgraduate are not, I mean, so much competent in the English portfolio is not as high as, I mean, the India has now.
Thank you. Very much. I'm not introducing them again.
I'm Kuheri from Kolkata, and we have heard about our two neighboring countries and the multilingual situation in their countries. Let us go straight to our classrooms and what kind of multilingual context do we get there as teachers. I'll be talking about that. As a teacher, I face a unique situation in my school because there are three mediums of instruction there: Bengali, Urdu, and English. As a teacher of English, I'm allotted classes students whose mother tongue could be Bengali, whose mother tongue can be Urdu as well. But I do not know Urdu. As a result, I face some problems. When I go to the classes of students with mother tongue as Bengali as their mother tongue, I don't have this problem because when I started as a teacher, I had this firm belief that I cannot use mother tongue. I should be using mother tongue as less as possible. This way I started. But gradually, with my experience with the students, I realized that whatever I'm doing, I should get across my message to the students. And whatever I'm telling, whatever task I'm giving them, if they do not understand, then what is the purpose of my doing that activity with the students? So this way, I started using mother tongue as a resource in the class, and with the Bengali medium students, I didn't have any problem. But when I had class with Urdu medium students, I was at a loss. I tried to speak English as much as possible, but looking at their faces, I could see that they were not really comprehending whatever I was telling them. Maybe a little bit they understood. So I had to think of a way out. And the way out that I could think of right then was the broken Hindi that I knew. I can speak Hindi, I can write Hindi because I know the Devanagari script. I know a little bit of Sanskrit as well. That's why I started using Hindi, which is close to Urdu, the spoken Urdu at least. And that helped me really to a great extent to reach my students. And it was the same with the students as well. They started coming closer to me. They started asking me questions after I started using Hindi in the class. And when I was at a loss, maybe I was talking about something, there was a Urdu word for that and I didn't know. And the students would come out to help me doing that. So then I realized that the multilingual context is helping my students to pick up English language. How? When the students with Bengali mother tongue, they communicate with students of Urdu as mother tongue,
they try to use English as much as possible. Naturally, they have this urge to learn the language, to pick up the language as soon as possible. And I can see them using a mixed language in the school campus. So I feel language, the multilingual context. Now, as I say that I would use mother tongue as resource, I would like to talk about the situation. It really helped me in the classroom to use mother tongue. It was a class, secondary level class, and students were asked to summarize their learning from a very familiar story to all of us, Oscar Wilde's Selfish Giant. And I could see that the student understood what I wanted of them. They had the answer with them, but in their answer there were many mistakes, and I realized the main recurring mistake was in use of verb in the sentences. So they were having problem with the structure of the sentence. So what I tried to do is I asked them, what did you really want to say in this sentence? I took one of the copies from them, and the child came out with his answer in Bengali. I wrote the Bengali sentence on the blackboard, and I translated it into English. I myself did the translation and drew the students' attention to the difference in the structure and the use of the verb in the sentence, how it differs from the use of the verb in Bengali sentence and the use of the verb in English. So that way I have tried. This is my experience as a teacher, how I can use mother tongue as a resource. As a trainer, I often go and tell teachers that use mother tongue judiciously. And teachers often come with this question, what would be considered as judicious use? So it is my question to all of you, how would you look upon this? Be done in your classroom as well. And I would narrate another incident that I myself had this experience at my tender age. I used to live in a place surrounded by people who do not speak Bengali. And I was a little one, and when I used to talk with my neighboring children, they would ask me, "Tumhari billi kahan rehta hai? Raat ko kahan rehta hai?" And I didn't know Hindi, so I would say, "Meri billi tine chal mein thakta hai." So what I was trying to do, those who know Bengali would understand. I was mixing Hindi and Bengali grammar there, using Bengali verb, but the formation was from Hindi. Thaka means stay. That was the Bengali word. My cat stays on the tin roof. So I was using the structure of Hindi, but putting the Bengali words there. So maybe this is what we think of as multilingualism at the societal and individual level as well. So my upbringing from that context really helped me to cope up with the situation in my classroom, and it really helped. Thank you.
So, Geeta, is this all right? क्षमा करो धर्मेंद्र शेठ, मारू नाम धर्मेंद्र से, मेरा नाम धर्मेंद्र शेठ है, माझा नाव धर्मेंद्र है. And you can use whatever language you know and remember my name. I have requested Amol to arrange for police protection because I'm going to say something that might ruffle your feathers. And to make your anger a little less, I'm going to make some observations. Some of them are caveats. In my family, we use 5 languages. So I have no problem with multilingual society. The term bilingual is used by different people, even during this conference, with different interpretations. If you have in your classroom students who use 2 languages, 3 languages, that doesn't necessarily mean that you as a teacher of English should use those languages. That is one of my premises. I have not taught students below standard 5. So if you are teaching students below 5 standard, then you might use whatever language you prefer. I'm going to compare the English language situation in the formal sector. Most of you are from that sector. With the English language education in the private sector, I'm going to focus on only those coaching centers where they teach spoken English, IELTS, TOEFL, business English, or English for specific purposes. The kind of work that you have been doing and the kind of work that we do, we are not against each other, but we take the credit. You lay the foundation, you prepare students, you bring them to a particular level, and those private coaching centers, I am also one of them, we take the credit. Because something that is not done, what is not done and what is probably not possible in your context, that I am going to say. Right from the beginning, the study material. Hardly probably 5 to 10% of you have liberty to decide what to teach and how to teach. Right? Whereas in the private sector, they have complete liberty. They can try out a particular course book. If they are not happy with the course book, they can change it. How to teach, that is also up to them. So there is complete freedom. Just imagine if you had that freedom, what would you do? What wonderful work you would do. Second is class size. Somebody was saying that in my class we have 120 students. What kind of pair work and group work will you do, and who will monitor? And what kind of development will be there? And one particular observation that I have made in my own classroom teaching, we normally have groups of 15 to 20 students. And Alistair, is he there? He was saying that even 25 is a big number for them. It is a large class for them, right? So 15 to 20 students in my session, and sometimes we club. So we have 40 students. The moment we go from 20 to 40, the use of local language increases. It has been practically observed. So another point is grouping of students. I'm sure in your classrooms, you have students of similar ages mainly. Grouping is done on the basis of ages. Whereas in private sector, they always go by the level of entry competence, like the level of English that the student has. So in my classroom, for example, right now, I have a student of standard 8. He sits beside a chartered accountant, and beside that there is a medical professional. Their age groups are also like varied, but the level of English is similar, and that is a big help for the teacher. Another major difference in terms of the classroom activities. The very first activity in most coaching centers like this is small talk. Small talk is, it's an idiom in English, I'm sure most of you know. So small talk means when you meet a stranger at an airport, for example, at a bus stop, how do you communicate with that person? So that is literally drilled. And many structures they use during this small talk, they may study much later. For example, have you been to any foreign country? Now that particular structure they are going to study much later. But in the classroom, during the early stages, they are taught this small talk, about 100 or 150 questions and answers. And because it is a small group, students come on the stage one by one. and others practice those questions. So within a week's time, every student has enough confidence to start communication. And once they start communicating in English, the growth, the linguistic growth will be much faster. Another thing is class talk. Now, why do your students need to resort to the local language? Because sometimes they want to ask something, but they don't know how to ask. So if you prepare students for class talk, that means what kind of language they require in the classroom. For example, if I don't know the English word for this as a student, then I will say, what do you call this in English? So that kind of communication, student talk, class talk. And the other side of the class talk, most teachers, they use instructions in Gujarati or Hindi or the local language under the, what should I say, pretext that students don't understand. But imagine if you give this instruction 10 times in English, is it not likely that they will understand on their own? Why do we underestimate the capacity of our learners? I have taught students of standard 5 in a remote area, 25 kilometers away from my place. Almost no exposure to English. Students, most parents had never gone to school. In that classroom, I taught for 45 minutes without using a single word of Gujarati. And can you imagine what students said to their principal after the class? ये टीचर को हमारे यहाँ रख दो ना. They wanted me to be their teacher. So I think we have to give more respect to our students' capacity to learn. Another is motivation. Luckily, in private sector, they get students who are highly motivated. They have a clear-cut goal. They want to achieve a particular level of English. They want to acquire a particular level of bands in IELTS or TOEFL like that. So they are highly motivated. Assessment is a big problem. I'm sure many of you will agree with me that sometimes you want to carry out certain activities, but because it is not assessed. For example, Gujarat speaking part. Yeah. Like spoken part, it's never tested. So it's so difficult for teachers to teach. Whereas we are lucky that speaking skill is tested in IELTS on TOEFL kind of exam. So we have to teach and students enjoy learning. And the last thing I would say, because I've been given a warning, like terms like linguistic imperialism, linguistic discrimination, linguistic nationalism, linguistic dominance, and language imperialism, these are some of the terms I've heard in the last 2 days. They don't matter outside for real candidates. So there is a kind of disconnect, I feel, between versions later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, all my panelists, for kind of keeping to time. Now, I'm just gonna take half a minute to look at the essence of what everybody has said and what we can take from there. Okay? Purna was telling us we've started multilingual education and we're trying to cope. Rubina with talking about how at one level there is monolingualism and at another level there isn't, and how she's coping. Koheli with her arguments about how she used broken Hindi when required to talk to students who didn't know Bengali but knew Urdu, and Dharmender with this lovely examples that said, let us not, the point I'm picking up for me, which I thought was very valuable, that receptivity is always at least 50% higher than productive ability. Our students can understand. They may not be able to speak. And that's what we should be valuing and celebrating and using. Okay, enough of me. A panel should be about audience and audience reactions. So Can we have comments, questions from the audience? But given that we are running a little short of time, as always in the second day of the seminar, which is the concluding day, can you keep it short, please? Okay? Who would like to begin? This is interesting. One, and we'll start here and then go there. Here. Okay, I'll give you mine. Here. No, you keep it. I'll take it back. I'll take it back when I want. Keep both.
Okay, I would like to share my experience in a multilingual classroom. In my country, probably this is the one and only domain where multilingualism is in place and in operation. When I was in the second year, B honors in English, second year, I started learning French out of curiosity and as a hobby. I studied French for 3 years. Then a Spanish course was offered under the aegis of Inditex Catedra Chair, organized by Cervantes, University of Santiago de Compostela, Galicia, Spain. And the teachers were wonderful. I observed one class and I started learning Spanish. And this is the 8th year I am continuing my learning with teachers. But the situation in the classroom is, it involves learners whose mother tongue is predominantly Bangla. And the teachers do not understand Bangla. And their English is quite poor. And their approach is strictly monolingual. I remember my first class of Spanish, and I felt like quitting the course, that I'm not going to turn up again in the second class. But after I finished my 4th year, I got a scholarship for studying an intensive 80-hour B2 level course in Spanish at that university, Santiago de Compostela. And in the first class, I became nostalgic that this is the language which I wanted to abandon learning in the first class because of the monolingual approach of the teachers. But gradually I got interested. And there were problems in the classroom. Over time, when I was continuing from one level to another level,
So somebody else can ask as well.
okay. So what I noticed is, when the issues were quite difficult and abstract, we students were of mixed level. So when the teacher was trying hard best to explain the things, many of us lagged behind. And we started talking in Bangla to understand. And later on, the teachers developed a strategy. In the higher diploma and higher diploma levels, they explained the things, and when they found that many of the students didn't understand, they took help of the students who were kind of more proficient in Spanish. And they used to look at us, looking at what is happening between us. And then, when the low achievers managed to use that particular point of that language correctly, the teacher was convinced. And this is how multilingualism was in operation in my classrooms.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. He's actually answered a question I was going to pose to many others, that what do you do when you are a teacher in the classroom and you have students with many language groups and you don't know those language groups? Here is one answer. Any other questions, please?
Hello, ma'am. I'm Rakesh Yadav from Nagpur. I agree with the Kohli ma'am that we can use our mother tongue, English language, because I also tried Marathi language to teach the English to my students. If you write the Marathi sentence on the blackboard and tell them where to use the verb and which are the helping verb, where to put the helping verb or the modal auxiliaries, so you can teach them the English very well. because I experienced over there. Because in a Marathi language, in a last alphabet, the student can understand the terms of that particular sentence. Suppose in Marathi, present tense, past tense, future tense. There are some in Marathi some words are there where you can understand the tense of that sentence, and that sense you can translate it English. When you teach them the construction, you have to put the helping verb as well as the verb, as well as the modal auxiliary.
Thank you for sharing that experience of being able to use God of grammar translation in the 21st century.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm not the problem creator, I'm problem solver. I just want to point it out one good thing. As we all have some 85 languages sitting in our conference hall, mainly we feel that mother tongue invention is too much while learning English. So we just do one simple thing. We can have some drilling properly. Language chunks. We know, all you know, right? Language chunks. Language chunks and ample drillings of those particular things. So the students gain more confidence in our English language, the target language. Thank you.
Thank you. The suggestion to use games is always valuable. There and there. Okay? Go there and then come.
I have a question. Since
If you
yesterday,
have a question, tell us to whom.
to the panel, whomsoever feel free, because
Anyone particular or anyone?
anyone,
Fine.
I would like you to please reply if it's possible. No, the question, because I'm from Madhya Pradesh, one of the Hindi speaking state, and of course we fall in Maru state, and a lot of things are there. Everyone has got same. Even when Mark shared his Spanish experiences with schools and all, we felt like, oh wow, sitting here we reached to Europe, because the same problem like Spain, we are Spanish now. So jokes apart, I'm always taught. I was a vernac medium student all my graduation, but I did masters in English. I follow the same track of Kumar Sulesh as he shared yesterday. Um, then came, English to teach. So I was taught, when you are speaking, when you are about to speak in English, you have to think English. So stop translating to remove the pause. Do you remember? Now, since yesterday, it's a huge transformation, because in my state, in 10th board examination, 5 marks are weightage for translation, which I'm thoroughly against since past 20 years. I said, this is not the right way to learn a language, because this is arbitrary. What comes, we have to take it like that. That was taught to me. Since yesterday, when there's not just bilingual, so multilingual, and I'm thinking like, oh my God, whether I was on a wrong track, one question. Second, I'm ready to adopt all these games to introduce and, see the transition. But I see a huge plateau there. I can be excited to start from tomorrow, but will I be able to continue? What is the essential core to make it continue or make it effective learning of language, no matter what language is it? Is it very difficult question to answer?
Not sure. Yeah. No. Actually, see, on behalf of everybody else, see, your question was about translation. Think in the same language, write in the same language. I was taught to do exactly educated girl. Believe me, I got very low marks in Tamil at the degree level because I could not think and write cognitively complex essays in my mother tongue. I could do it in English as an English medium student. So I actually went to the non-formal sector, and I still remember that schoolmaster who told me, he told me in Tamil, don't worry about the language in which you get your ideas. Put them down, plan an order, find the equivalent words in the other language, and then start writing in that language. It's the translating from You write a whole essay in one language and you try translating, you will never reach anywhere. But for many of us, our more enabled language could be either one. For academics, use your resources to plan and then write in your less enabled language when you have to. That's all that I would say. Now, translation 5 marks. They have to do it. Get them to do it. No problem. You cannot change a state board pattern. So live with it. Okay, language games. Last question. Yes, you need language games, but they cannot become 1 hour of teaching. So 5 minutes, 10 minutes, depending on the activity. Okay, before I come there was a person there who had a hand up. And then here.
Hello. This is a question to Rubina ma'am. Because Rubina ma'am said previously they were criticized teachers. We were talking in other languages and now it is a stop. Am I right, ma'am? You said this? Yeah, English department. Okay. Just question. This is my question. If any teacher want to enhance the English language of their student in the class, should he compel the student to speak in English or he can accept the answer in any language?
So we are kind of in a transitional stage with the globalized world. We nowadays do accept, but initially the training we had was no. If you really want to develop the speaking skill of your learners, no matter whatever is their proficiency level, ask them to speak in English. But now we have changed and we are kind of more.
Wait, we'll go there and we come back to you. Okay. Fine. Sorry. I can't hear you.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jayesh Korea from Gujarat. Sir, I'm agree with that in large class, right? A class of 60 or 65. So grouping and pairing, so we are using multilingual, what students know. That's why we use that. I'm agree with that. And one more thing that I use ICQ after checking instruction, checking questions, after giving instruction. Then also students don't understand. So sometimes I give you example. I said open page number 2, but they don't understand. So I just mix it with Gujarati bilingual. 50 bay Gujarati ma bay 2 means do. Okay. So I use it. So now it's been familiar. So when I say some page number like 43, so they say 43 kadiye sir. I said okay, that's fine. Thank you, sir.
See, it's like strategies being used to make sure our children learn.
Very good afternoon, everyone. It's me, Sanju from Nepal. My question to Pursa, who is also from Nepal. Sir, I born in late 20th centuries. I was taught in direct method. When I joined in teaching and involved in professional development, I was guided to use English as a medium of instruction, or you can say that a communicative approach. And I started teaching in class through English medium. Those students who could understand me easily, they appreciated me. But those who didn't have such type of capacity, they complained to administratives, addressing me as an English teacher, American teachers. Please advise him to use mother tongue, Nepali language. Even that, I didn't agree. I continued, but now I understand. Each and every learner has its own capacity. As I have 5 fingers, these fingers are not equal. I accept that all learners' cognitive strengths should be equal. And now I'm giving values. I'm giving autonomous freedom them to express, because I think that stopping students is not good. Allowing them to express whether what language they use and doing good or not? Please.
Thank you, sir. Actually, Nepal government has adopted, multilingual education from primary level, from 1 grade to 3 grade. I mean, then since you see even the English as medium instruction should be adopted, and then first language, mother tongue is the source of knowledge for the learners also. Is a resources you can say. Even there is some problems of making them understand through English. Even students are given the autonomy to talk in their mother tongue because they have already developed, you can say, these cars and pigs and cars, and they can compete with each other, and they can also come up with some solutions as well. That's why main instruction EMI is only the started from the 4th grade. I mean the up to primary level, and mother tongue mother tongue instruction has already started in 21 districts in Nepal in 80 languages. You see, Nepal has 120 languages, 6 languages have been added. Altogether, there are 126 languages in Nepal. So, classroom is like a miniature, you can say. There are 51% of the students are from the non-Nepali speakers, you can say. So, it's very true. I mean, even to make them understand in Nepali translation also. We should use their mother tongue compulsory mandatory, otherwise, they would break dull and dumb. People will be boycotted. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Avinash, right there.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Mrs. Saili Arun Mahajan from Nasik, Maharashtra. I am a vernacular medium student. I was a vernacular medium student, and I am a teacher in vernacular medium school. And the English poetry, Marathi rhythms, and my class enjoys it very nicely. But with of mother tongue prove an obstacle in mastering the English linguistic skills. Will it prove an obstacle for the students for the English
Okay,
classes?
the question is, wait, let me listen to the next comment and then I'll answer this. Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody. Naimish from Jamnagar, Gujarat. I would like to say one thing. That multilingual class and bilingual class is not problem. Sometimes I feel that it's an advantage because I have an experience in studying standard 1 to 5, and I would like to share. My students are speaking Kutchi. The language, the local language is Gujarati, and I am teaching English. So there are many languages in one particular place. Now there is always a competition in our school, and the student between students and me. They always enjoy my class when I speak English, and I always enjoy them when they speak Kutchi. So always they speak a sentence in Kutchi, and the same sentence I transfer in English, and they learn my language, I learn their language. So it's an enjoyment.
Thank you very much. One last comment and then we'll wind up. I'm sorry. One here, okay. You will be the last, okay?
Hello everyone, I am Kalpana from Chandrapur. Actually, I would like to ask a question to the all panelists, all guests. Actually, I would like to ask that thing that we discussed on the using mother tongue. Okay, so I want to know about where to use mother tongue while teaching English, and where not to use mother tongue for the learners and for the teachers as well. Because what happened if we allow them to use mother tongue, they feel comfortable. It's okay. The platform is open for me. So I don't think that it will work further because they will not learn English language if you allow them or give them freedom to use. So where to use and where not to use. So could you please give us some tips for that?
Okay. Let me get the next question and then we'll answer both together. Okay. And we'll end the discussion with final comments.
Hello. My question is to the whole set of panelists here. We are. Hello, am I clear now? I audible? Well, multilingualism is one thing that all of us are listening and talking about since yesterday. My question to the whole panelists is that we treat English as a global language. One thing, that view. When we are globalizing our learners, I mean, when we are preparing our learners to the whole set of global, by encouraging multilingualism, are we doing that? Okay, I mean, is multilingualism a hindrance to globalize our children? So, how do we see this thing, like English as a global language and multilingualism as a hindrance for globalizing our students?
I would like to answer the question about when to the mother tongue or the other tongue, not the target language. So, in my classes for adult learners, we do use the mother tongue for two specific reasons. Number one, when we feel that after teaching for some time, learners have not understood the very fundamental concept. And I'll give you an example in people will understand Hindi. Padhe, karna padega. So for that we'll have to. Suppose you teach and if they don't understand, if you just say padhe, karna padega, that concept is understood. After that you don't need to use that language, right? Number one. Number two, we use it for humor. Very often when you use English in the classroom and some words or some phrases if you use in Gujarati, Zara hatke.
Thank you. To answer the other questions about are we using English are we teaching it as a global language? No. English is our language. And we have the right to make changes to it as we see fit. English is not a foreign language in any of our countries. We are not teaching, apologies to Jason, British English or American English. We are teaching Indian English. Therefore, we don't have to ask, can I or can I not use my mother tongue? I'm passionate about this. All over the world, in standardized tests, I'm talking as an evaluator today. Now, the whole issue now is accommodations. Accommodations means adjustments are being made to test the content and to use the first languages of all people whose mother tongue or first language is not English. They are taking 10 steps forward to say, oh my God, they're being left behind. Title 7 started way back in America in the 60s, where Chinese groups went to court to say, because my children could not answer in Chinese, they were left behind. We don't have to apologize for it. English is one of our languages. We will use it as we like. I'm not speaking British English. I can put on an accent and talk to you as though I am living in England. I can't be bothered. Okay? I'm very happy speaking South Asian intelligible English. Now, already one question got answered. What was yours, ma'am? What will it be an obstacle? It never will. It never will. See, now he gave us an example of how even in a monolingual foreign language classroom, the teacher began using Bangla for survival. Our language of thinking for many of our students is not English. We are killing them because they don't have the ideas. They write only 3 sentences and we give them 2 out of 10. If you get them to think and compose in another language and put their ideas down and react and respond, they will get 8 on 10. Right? Let us celebrate the resources we have, whether it's water, whether it's solar energy, population, and our languages.
Thank you very much for this fascinating panel discussion. And I'm absolutely sure that we have several unanswered questions and lots of curiosities. The success of a good panel discussion is it leaves or raises more questions than answers them. So if you are leaving this with lots of questions in your mind, it means that your mental cycles have started going brrr. So thanks for stimulating us into all kinds of thinking and options and alternatives, and thanks for sharing lots of different perspectives from different experiences. Yeah, you are absolutely safe. Otherwise, by now you have been stoned. Yeah. Yeah. May I request Geeta to offer a token of our love to all the panelists on our behalf. Can we get I will tell you. Could you give this to Rubina? And can I request Nadeem to offer similar token of love to Geeta? Stay. To Geeta. Stay.
I used to get it from my student.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Oh yes. Can we have a picture with the five of us together, please?
Yep. So while the panel is winding up and Jason is getting ready for plenary, just a quick reminder that in order to be lucky, you need to deposit your delegate badges in the box here. And in order for us to be lucky, please do share your feedback and remember to drop your feedback forms in the other calls as well. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Another interesting announcement. AINET has a media team, and there is a group that takes care of the blogging side of AINET. And they have come up with an offer for you. They have announced a blog writing championship contest. And the topic is very simple. What did I learn from this AINET conference? Send your blogs to the AINET Gmail address. It's very simple, theINET@gmail.com by 28th February. Besides getting your blogs published on the AINET site, you will also be eligible for winning several prizes. There will be a follow-up announcement later, but consider this as an advance warning and start thinking, start preparing, and turn, if you are not already one, turn into a blog writer. Thank you. Volunteers, can you help? There are too many chairs here. Meanwhile, may I invite Alicia to introduce Jason?
A very hearty good afternoon to one and all present over here. Welcome to this closing plenary session. It has been intensive 2 days, productive, fruitful, and wonderful sessions. And today we are here heading towards our closing plenary. I'm very glad that I still see many people over here. It's my privilege to introduce our heading towards our closing plenary. I'm very glad that I still see many people over here. It's my privilege to introduce our esteemed speaker for this plenary session, Mr. Jason Anderson, who is going to throw light on the effective English teachers, perceptions and opinions of Indian teachers. Jason Anderson is an award-winning author, teacher educator, consultant and researcher in both language teaching and mainstream education. He has worked in a including longitudinal grassroots support of teachers working in difficult circumstances in both Africa and Asia. He has also worked on top-down teacher development initiatives, both pre-service and in-service, for organizations including UNICEF, British Council, and National Ministries of Education. As well as his interest in teaching in difficult circumstances, he has conducted research on translingual practices, experiences of NS on initial certification courses, teacher reflection, lesson planning, and aspect of history of language. He has received 2 British Council Elgin Awards, including for his book Teaching English in Africa 2015, and is currently the series editor for Delta Publishing's Idea in Action series. On behalf of AINET and BCE, I welcome you, sir, and request you to share the key findings of your exploratory survey research, The Effective English Teacher.
Thank you very much, Alicia. Can you all hear me at the back? Great. If I stand here, it probably will be just right, hopefully. So, thank you very much for that kind introduction, Alicia. Thank you all to AINET for inviting me to speak. It's a great honor and a great pleasure to be here, and I'm proud to be presenting on research conducted among the AINET community. I was here at the conference 2 years ago, not here, in Mumbai, and even there I felt welcome. And here 2 years later, I feel part of the AINET community, so it's really nice to be there. And I'm feeling less nervous than I normally do when I give a plenary as a result of that fact. So that's a good feeling for me. I've had a great time at this conference, I need to say. I've learned so much, right from the opening plenary through to the workshops I've been to, the papers I've had presented, and there will probably be a video of me on Facebook doing some strange dancing in probably what was the most enjoyable workshop for me. So thank you again. It's a real pleasure, a real honor. So I have about 25 years experience working as a teacher and teacher educator. However, I've never done a PhD. Like many people in this room, I didn't have the time. Like many people in this room, I didn't have the time or the money to see through such a long process. And to some extent, I didn't feel the need to do it. I felt all the money to see through such a long process. And to some extent, I didn't feel the need to do it. I felt comfortable doing what I was doing. But about 3 years ago, I received funding from a UK organisation. You can see it at the bottom there, the Economic and Social Research Council, to do a PhD. And as a result of this funding, I was able to plan a more ambitious project than is typically possible. A more ambitious project than is typically possible for many of us when doing PhDs. We often have to focus in on something quite specific. But I chose to tackle what is probably one of the biggest questions in education. What is good teaching? Effective teaching, teacher expertise, whatever we want to call it. I think we as teachers know what we're talking about when we use any one of these terms. And while there is lots of research on good teaching, the vast majority of that research is conducted in what we might call privileged contexts, by which I'm talking about teaching and learning environments in generally high-income countries, especially North America and Western Europe. We have much less research on state school education here in India, in other parts of South Asia, and in Sub-Saharan Africa. And it's in these contexts where I've done the majority of my work as a teacher educator. And because of these differences in context, I think it's fairly obvious to most of us, And because of these differences in context, I think it's fairly obvious to most of us that good is necessarily going to be a different thing in more challenging contexts. However, there is a tendency in education, a rather dangerous tendency, I would say, to presume that best practice is what happens in privileged contexts, and that in order to improve teaching in countries like India, we simply need to import ideas and practices from higher income contexts, even though that rarely leads to success. You get the joke about compatibility. But you and I, we know differently. From both my personal experience of being at the conference and my experience of working with teachers who are part of the AINET community, I know what you know, that there are many great teachers working in countries like India, including in the most challenging contexts in countries like India. I see them in evidence all the time when I come to conferences like this, and I see them in evidence in every country I've ever worked in contexts in countries like India. I see them in evidence all the time when I come to conferences like this, and I see them in evidence in every country I've ever worked. We also know, I think, that what such teachers do has some similarities to what effective teachers do in more privileged contexts, but some important differences. And we also, I think, know why those differences are. They're complex, they're multiple. My research is based on the premise that we can find these teachers, study them, share their findings, share the findings of what we learn when we work with them, to help other teachers working in comparable, similar contexts, so that we are not reliant on importing ideas from other contexts that may or may not work in our classrooms here in India. And I'm about 2 years into this project. You can see an overview of it here if you want to. By the way, I'll share all the slides at the end for a link to an online source. Okay. I'm currently doing the field work in several states across India, and I'm enjoying it immensely, learning huge amounts. But I've faced a number of challenges, as you would expect, with such an ambitious project, such as how to find teachers who are both willing to participate in the project and able to share what they do. How do you ensure the study is ethically sound and not exploitative of the teacher? And the participation was a key part of that for me. But perhaps the most fundamental challenge I faced is the most fundamental challenge I've faced in trying to conduct such research is to not import assumptions about good teaching from other contexts, and to try to develop an understanding of good or expert or effective teaching that is both pedagogically and culturally appropriate to the context in which one is working. And in this context, for me as a researcher, it's in state school education here in India. So in India. So how do you do this? Well, I reason that if there are good teachers here in India, and of course there are, then teachers and of talking about what they do, teaching. We might call it a professional community of practice, what they do, teaching. We might call it a professional community of practice, a community of expertise even. And I thought that if I can find such a community, then that community can help me, not only to find the teachers that I need to work in my project, but also to help me to construct an understanding of effective teaching that is uniquely Indian. If you like, an Indian effective teacher prototype. But where to find such a community? The community is, of course, AINET. And I quite like this community of teacher expertise, because I really do believe passionately that that's what we have here. I think one of the most valuable things about AINET, it's going to change, I believe, but that you cannot buy your way into AINET. There is no membership yet. Soon there will be, apparently. But at this stage, what is fascinating about everybody gathered in this room is you have to do something in your own professional development to be part of this community. To come here, people online watching, people in the thousands of WhatsApp groups over India that are now being used so effectively for teacher education. In that sense, AINET is a true professional learning network, what they call PLN now. I'm a bit old now, I've kind of lost touch with some of the new terms, but apparently that's the thing. So today I'm going to talk about, not about the main research I'm doing, but to talk about a preliminary study I did last year into the perceptions and opinions of members of the AINET community about an effective secondary teacher of English working in state school education, i.e. not including wholly private education. What the effective teacher does, what she's like, what she believes, and why. This community-based, context-specific understanding of effectiveness is, I believe, something that can inform research into effective teaching, such as my own, and something that we can build upon here in Indian language teaching communities, such as AINET and such as LTI as well, so that we can further practice. So I encourage and welcome your input both during this talk, during this plenary, when I'll provide opportunities for discussion, and afterwards, so that we can continue the discussion about our understandings of effective teaching as practitioners. So here's the plan for the remainder of the talk. You can see there are two opportunities there for you to participate, and I hope you will talk to the person next to you. If you're sitting alone, please feel free to find someone. Many of you in this room, I'm sure, and I know for a fact, have responded to the questionnaire, so the findings should be quite familiar to you. And there'll be an opportunity as well for you to be critical about the findings in different ways. I'll explain about that in a moment. So there we go. So let me begin first of all by talking a little bit about how I did the study. To make it generalizable across a community such as AINET, I needed lots of responses, and I needed to ask open questions in order to ensure that the responses were not influenced by the survey tools, by the questionnaire I used. Normally in this interview, in this situation, interviews is the kind of default format for it. But I chose to use a questionnaire and to make it qualitative, because that allowed me, first of all, access to a much wider range of respondents than face-to-face or even online interviewing, which is restricted for some teachers in India. It allowed for what we sometimes call thick descriptions in qualitative research. In other words, not just one-word responses, but extensive responses that demonstrate beliefs and understandings. And also, I think probably the most pivotal thing was the written format of a questionnaire allowed respondents to think carefully about their responses. And that's particularly valuable for me, for example, if I'm working in a language that isn't a language I feel 100% comfortable in, that I would prefer to write my response than to speak it. And some of the respondents' spoken English proficiency was weaker, so it was a useful thing for them, I think. So yeah, I chose to use a questionnaire, and I'll show you the questionnaire in a moment. I chose to focus on government schools, and I chose to focus on secondary education. Aside from everything else, I know for a fact that it is probably the single largest context for AINET participants. Most of you are secondary teachers of English. And it's also the largest context for specialist language teaching in India. And having met so many primary teachers here who themselves are so knowledgeable, I feel less comfortable by making this point here. But because primary teachers are less subject specialists in individual subjects, they tend not to necessarily have, they're more likely, shall we say, to teach different subjects similarly. So I wanted to work in a field where teachers were language teacher specialists. And higher secondary was also a possibility, and tertiary. But in those contexts, education is already elective. So the point that was made about private school education is always also to some extent about any context where it's no longer compulsory. Teaching languages in compulsory education is possibly the single default, most common and most important context for language teaching and teacher education research around the world. You get my point. So let's have a look at the questionnaire for anybody interested in using a qualitative questionnaire. Can you see at the back the lines here? Is it too easy? Thumbs up or thumbs down? I can read out. There's a thumb up at the back, so if necessary, I will read some out. But you can see what I've done here. So 2 sides of the questionnaire. This is the written one. There was also an online one, which was accessible by mobile phone. Extremely important here in India. Mobile phone. Extremely important here in India. And the first thing I asked respondents to do was to imagine the lesson of the effective teacher. First, the context, so we could establish particularly urban, rural context, which I think personally is a very, very important variable, a very important factor in education in India. Then I asked them to describe what happens in the effective teacher's lesson, the second question, and this was probably the longest response. It got me some very useful information about what you perceived an effective teacher would do in her or his lesson. I then asked questions like, what do the students learn in the lesson? And what do they value about the teacher? So your beliefs about the students' values of relating to the effective teacher. And then in the second half of the questionnaire, I asked respondents to describe the teacher herself or himself. What are they like as a person? What do they do that a normal teacher doesn't do? How would they describe the purpose of their job? What are her beliefs about effective teaching? And how does she or he deal with the challenges of working in such a context as technical education? So I got a really good number of responses. Of 87 responses, 7 were too brief. I removed those which produced less than 50 words. The average was over 200 words, so they were a good level of detail. But I removed the briefest ones. And I also, some of you are so keen that you did it twice. And so those of you who did, the logical thing to do is to remove the second response. And I had 75 responses, which was a really good total. So thank you to all of you who responded. And as you can see, the demographics of the respondents is really good. It's really representative both of the AINET community and of the demographic I was interested in. In other words, secondary teachers, experienced secondary teachers, part of the AINET community of expertise. There was a nice balance of both government and government-aided or private-aided schools, whichever term you prefer to use. And there was a balance between urban, semi-urban, and rural environments. And 63% from non-English medium schools, what sometimes called the natural medium here, Hindi medium, Marathi medium, Telugu medium. And I'm not going to go into too much detail about the data analysis, but I used an inductive method. By inductive, I mean that rather than attempting to pose any external constructs on how to organize the data, I allow the data to speak for itself. I allow the categories to emerge from the response, both in terms of what people were talking about, for example, CPD, and what aspects of CPD were being talking about. Keeping on learning was a very common one. So I allowed the data to develop its own categories. Because one of the key ideas behind this piece of research is not to impose my external assumptions about how to organize responses, how to understand the responses, which were all of them constructs about effective teaching. So before I move on to show the findings, I'd like to hand over to you now for a few minutes. Turn to a partner next to you, and if you responded, you may want to try to remember what you wrote. It was over, so that's my. Spend a few minutes talking about if I were to imagine the lesson of an effective teacher, what would that be like? If I were to ask you to imagine what their personality is like, what would that be like? And also their beliefs about teaching and learning. Turn to someone next to you and spend a few minutes chatting about that, and then I'll share my findings. Okay, thank you.
Hello.
Okay. I hate making a good point over there. Okay, finish that sentence if you can. Great. Now I'm not going to get you to provide feedback because I did that. I'm now going to show you what the AINET community as it was then, and it's interesting the fact that the community itself potentially changes and shifts over time. I'm now going to provide you with the findings. To begin with, I'll just show you a couple of word clouds. I personally quite like word clouds. They don't always make academic research presentations, but I find them really useful to get a sense of things that are being said. But they only ever tell us on a word level about what people are saying. So the first one was the question, what do students learn? And for anyone not familiar with a word cloud, the larger a word is, the more it was mentioned. You see often that the words that are in question, because those obviously come up very frequently, student learning and learner. So it's interesting there that the word language is very present. There's a key question being discussed in India, in Indian English language communities. I hear it all the time. In English language communities, I hear it all the time. Whether to teach English as language or as subject. And it's a question that to some extent only Indian practitioners understand because of this complex combination of English language and literature that is being taught here. But that in itself is deceptive, as you see from the main researches. The word language was used a lot because it's obviously part of the question. But the word skills is very big there, especially if you combine it with a singular skill. And the word confidence, I think, is very interesting on this side, if you can see it there. So some interesting points there, I think. So about the teacher's beliefs. So this is your beliefs about the effective teacher's beliefs. If you were thinking about yourself, which I hope many of you were, then you're essentially relaying your own beliefs. But that I thought was interesting as well. The word should is there, which isn't too surprising. But the word process is very big, and I thought that was interesting as well. That you were talking about teaching English, the process of teaching and learning English. And there was also some discussion of ability was also quite large there. The next slide I'd like to show, and sorry for everyone at the back, I did move everything up last night when I saw that the slides were quite, the room was like this. The next slide I'd like to show is the quantitative, if you like. And so the categories that emerge from the research are as follows, and I'll shift it up in a moment. You can see probably, hopefully at the back, can you see, there were areas that were very obviously shared, such as attribute, teacher, professional practice, beliefs, the teacher's beliefs. And within each, you can see which categories came up as being most dominant. For example, the fact that the teacher is friendly. If you recall Mark Levy's research in yesterday, the reporting of UK-based research, that students need or prefer teachers who make a lot of jokes. Friendly was very high there as well. Professional practice, that the teacher keeps learning, I think is very, very interesting. And their beliefs about building learner confidence and motivation, about developing transferable skills. And here's another interesting point, that subject knowledge acquisition was important. So those word clouds only tell half the story. But in fact, subject knowledge acquisition was mentioned more than skills. Okay. But also, when it came to the classroom and teaching, there was a lot of you saying this teacher plans well or plans carefully for teaching. In the classroom, that they encourage collaboration, facilitate learning, engage learners, and teach using an interactive style. That's towards the bottom, if you can't see it the back. So clearly, what was being described here was and generally, if we take those qualities, what we might call a learner-centered, possibly a constructivist teacher. So that's fine as a quantitative summary of qualitative data, but obviously you presented a data in qualitative format. So I wanted to work out a way to present it myself that would provide a summary, if you like, of everything that you said, to try and take the 75 questionnaires and put them into one that was representative of all the opinions. What to do now is I'm going to show you the summary, and it's very important to state here that any research on classroom practice, this is a summary of the AINET community's beliefs about the effective teacher. And we always need to keep that in mind, and I'll make that point again at the end. What I'd like you to do, and this may lead to a little bit of chaos, I'd like you, those of you in each pair, one member of each pair, to take a photograph of the next two screens. Because I'm going to show the prototype in two halves. It's about a couple of hundred words. And I'm not going to read out, I'm just going to show it. We will read it silently. People at the back will need to stand up. If you're in the middle or at the front, try not to stand up for that obvious reason. And then on to the second slide, and then we'll move on to a second discussion phase where you can think critically. Half of your effective secondary English teacher prototype. If you can take a photo, and if you take a photo, just take a moment to read it. I'm not going to rush you. The bold is obviously mine, but I just wanted to emphasize key words. And if you can see there, the quantitative data you saw, this is a kind of a representation of the points that were made most specifically. Let's have a look at the second half of it now. Discussing in the classroom of the effective teacher. And two quotes that I couldn't resist putting in. Just one person for expression, unquenchable thirst for learning. But many of you were talking about just one person for expression, unquenchable thirst for learning. But many of you were talking about that. And this word updating is a commonly used word in amongst the responses to talk about how the pages and you've read it. So let's do another discussion activity now. I'd like to hand over to you again to talk to the people you were talking to before and to discuss the questions I put up here. Do you think the respondents describe the typical teacher they are, the teacher they would like to be? Does it portray classroom realities accurately, or is it more an idealized perception? Does it capture what you said in your response? Obviously, it's a balance, and some responses won't be so dominant in there. And what does it tell us? What does it reveal about the education systems in India and the challenges we face? And also, whether you have any critical thoughts about what research is being done by the researcher, whether you agree with the discussion to always be critical. So 5 more minutes, please. Discussion in pairs or small groups about the profile. Hopefully you can access it on your phones and discuss it that way. Here is the whole prototype for those of you who want to see it again. It's a bit squashed up, but I got it all on one slide. There's different levels of engagement given the time of the day. What I'll do there is I'll pause you. I'll pause the discussion for a moment. And I'll just share the reflections of one member of the AINET community who has seen this prototype. Amol. No, I'm just saying, the reflections of one member of the community, Amol, who saw this prototype. He commented on the fact that there's no mention of multilingualism here, which I thought was really important. And several of you did mention a multilingual teacher. but it didn't make a certain threshold. If I go back, the threshold I had for categories that seemed to be most important was 10 mentions, and less than 10 of you mentioned multilingual. So it was an interesting fact that multilingualism wasn't really mentioned by respondents, so therefore it didn't make it into the prototype. And I think listening a lot about how instinctual that is to many teachers in India, both in the way they presented here, and also my own classroom research, I can confirm that there are lots of very effective, very multilingual teachers working in India. So clearly multilingualism is an important part of, and I'm sure will be part of the fact that the effective secondary teacher, multilingualism didn't actually make the cut, if you like, for what went into the prototype. Other things were more dominant in your discussion. So there we go. Now let's have a look at how your prototype, the AINET prototype, relates to other research. And there's lots of other research on teachers' beliefs about effective teaching, and international research as well. Perhaps the most interesting study to mention is a study by Suzanne Brinkman, 2015, who worked at primary level across a range of classrooms in India, a very ambitious project, categorizing teachers as high LCE, by which she meant learner-centered education, and low LCE, in other words, students who were teachers who she categorized as less learner-centered. And she looked at their beliefs and practices. And one of the interesting findings is that there were a lot of parallels between the AINET community's beliefs and what she found about the beliefs of the high LCE teachers, in other words, the more learner-centered teachers in her study. This included high moral integrity and a desire to develop future citizens. And there's another link to Brinkman's work that I'll show a bit later. There's another very, very interesting study by Sri Prakash conducted in Karnataka, again at primary level. And Sri Prakash's study, again, wasn't mainly about teachers' beliefs, but she did ask them what they feel a good teacher is like. So they asked them to describe a good teacher. And there's a lot of similarities to what her teachers were saying, including things like friendliness, engaging the learners, a caring role, self-awareness, and learning continuously. This desire to keep on learning, to keep updating oneself. And then when I compared it to the wider international literature on teaching beliefs on effective teaching, then there were some strong links that could be found, such as care for learners. This is something that comes up time and time again, not just in the beliefs literature, but also in the evidence from practice. Consideration of learners' needs, careful planning was in both, engaging lessons, providing engaging lessons, and a dedication to one's practice. So hard work, dedication, all of these linked together. And a few of the example papers are shown there. Interestingly, your prototype didn't really speak much to the international literature on effective language teaching, or sorry, on beliefs about effective language teaching, was a belief that collaborative learning would. And interestingly, communicative language teaching didn't really come up too much in your discussion. Only 2 respondents used the word communicative. But skills practice and collaborative learning were very prominent. And of course, when you put these 2 things together, you're usually moving towards a more communicative approach to language teaching. It's an interesting point, I think, to reflect on that the strong moral imperative within the prototype that was very good, but it's there time and time again in the research from India, both in Brinkman's and Sri Prakash's research, and also Krishna Kumar, the former head of NSERT, his book from 2005, which looks on aspects of the history and the politics of education in India, and also in Sarangapani's ethnographic study from 2003. That moral imperative is very strongly there as well in those pieces. But the 2 things I think that came out that were quite uniquely yours were, first of all, the discussion on the challenges and the need for flexibility and resilience to cope with these challenges. It isn't that common in the international research, but as you can imagine, as you know from your classrooms, it was extremely important in your profile, in your prototype. So expressions like keep calm, be positive, be able to camouflage, This related to the idea of not being seen by certain people so you can get on with your job. Learn the Art of Resilience was the most beautiful expression by a member of the AINET community, who I know well, and he's not here unfortunately for a very good reason, but that I thought was a brilliant idea, and to think positive as well. And there was an emphasis on the importance of developing practical transferable skills, which was shared with the Brinkman paper as well, which I think is interesting because in India it's one of the challenges that I think so many teachers face about moving from teaching for its own sake to teaching skills to enable them to use their own. That I thought was very interesting. And I did one final thing. Whilst this wasn't really a central part of the research question, it was your prototype, similar to what we actually know about the classroom practices of effective teachers. Now, I've said earlier in this talk that we only really know about the classroom practices of effective teachers from more privileged contexts. And Strong produced a very interesting meta-review of this, in which he comes up with 4 C's of effective teaching at the end. So this on the left is what he found out about effective teaching from observing classroom practices and looking at research on effective teachers. And nearly all of these features are very strong in your prototype, which I thought was fascinating. Strong's effective teacher cares deeply, and that's very strongly in the prototype, including building confidence and moral awareness. The effective teacher recognizes complexity, and Strong here is talking about both complexity in the learning content, what you're teaching, what you should be teaching, what you could be teaching, and the complexity of the student's need and response to both. So issues such as differentiation fall into that. Moving down to the last one, if you can't see at the back, the last one says the effective teacher serves conscientiously. And this was extremely prevalent in the prototype. This very clear, strong belief here in India that we have a moral duty to serve our learners. And the only one that wasn't so strongly there was this idea that the effective teacher communicates clearly. And here he was referencing both a climate of support and encouragement, which was in the prototype very strongly, but also talking about the effective teacher's knowledge base. And that was less prominent, but potentially because of the way that I was asking the questions, the potential criticism of my research instrument, my research student. So there we go. There is a very interesting, I think, finding that the AINET effective teacher prototype has a great deal of similarity to what we actually know about effective teaching in other parts of the world, but less so with what we might call the practices of communicative language teaching, which I thought was an interesting finding. So just before I move to the end, I just want to, again, emphasize this point, that what this is a study of beliefs, a study of what we sometimes call espoused beliefs. And it was only within the AINET professional community, and remember, you're not representative of teachers in India. If we looked at how dedicated the average teacher are and how dedicated you are, we would probably find a very large statistically significant difference. AINET teachers are unique in that sense. But as such, it got me what I wanted, which is the opinions of a community of expertise in India about what an effective teacher is, so that I didn't start within my research looking at the teachers, the classroom practices, from a perspective that was wholly biased. I don't counterbalance my personal bias, which will always be there. It's also important to mention this idea of social desirability bias. Sometimes what we tell other people we believe, we tell them because we want them to believe that we believe that, if you see what I mean, rather than actually talking about the beliefs that govern our practice. Theories in use is the term that Donald Sherman and Chris Arguri talked about in the 1970s. And so this is very much a study again of espoused beliefs. And the survey instrument, while it was interesting, it was original, it may have influenced the findings, particularly with regard to multilingualism and knowledge base. I didn't want to ask too many leading questions, so I kept the questions open, but potentially I could have asked more directed questions in these areas. So I'm going to show the references now. This won't be visible, but because I'm going to show you a link to the slides afterwards, you'll be able to figure it out in your own time, okay? So there we go. Those are the references. And I'd like to finish by saying thank you again to all of the respondents. If you've got a phone with a QR code reader, you should be able to hold it up and click up on that, and that will take you to the slides, which are on my website. There's a tiny URL, or you just go to the talk page of my website, where I've also put the slides from my talk to yesterday. So thank you again to all of the respondents. Thank you to those of you who piloted the questionnaire, and there are quite a few of them. Special thanks to where's Krishna gone? There he is. And to Santosh Mahapatra, who also provided very useful critical feedback on an early draft of this. There is a paper in review at the moment. We'll see how it gets on. I'll let the AINET know if it gets through. Any feedback, and I really would be interested in your feedback on this, please feel free to drop me an email. I'd be very interested in that. It's been a great pleasure to do this. But before I finish, just about on time, I'm 1 minute late. I do want to make just one other final point. I have been, and I hope I am, an advocate of diversity in not just teaching and learning, but in teacher education. And one of the reasons I love AINET is because it is a very diverse community. And when we talk about confidence and diversity in participants and speakers, it was lovely to see the panel discussion of all Indian expertise, so erudite, so knowledgeable, and to see the amazing Geeta Durarajan commanding that so well. It would be lovely at the future conferences if we don't have the two female speakers as white, male, British English. And I know that that will happen in the future as well. So just one point, let's just make sure that we value Indian expertise. There is so much of it in this room, and so many of you could have done this research in this book. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jason. Actually, it's a very lovely interpretation. AINET has a long journey in past and in future also. And I'm very much thankful to Jason for showing us our footprints. Thanks a lot on behalf of AINET and BCD. Now I would like to call Jacqueline Amran, to have a token of love from AINET and BCD. So it's a token of love from AINET and BCD to Jason. Hello. Thank you. Thank you.
We are now immediately moving to the final leg, to the conclusion of today's conference. And this is not going to be a formal session, it will be largely informal. And as is the practice in AINET conferences, we usually invite a couple of people to share their critical observations about the 2 days experience of the conference. And we usually try to choose people who have less familiarity, less experience of India or AINET or the whole cultural nuances here, so that there is a very different perspective from which we might gain very interesting ideas and lessons. So for this reason, I would like to call upon Ms. Eileen Finn and Vicky Hell to join me on the stage and in a couple of minutes share their thoughts about this conference. Thanks for coming to the conference. Both Eileen and Vicky are English language fellows sponsored by the American in India for more than a year. So they do have some familiarity, but not enough to get submerged in the Indianness. And so look at this experience from their perspective. May I request Eileen to say a few things?
So, first of all, I'd like to say I love the themes that you guys have. In the US, only 25% of us are bilingual. So it was very fun to have and be in a room with people that are multilingual and to hear your perspective, which was very different from ours. Ours is trying to increase people to speak 4 languages, and yours is to try to speak multiple languages, and that's great. My feeling is each language we learn is a new key to an opportunity and a new key to a better life. And so the more languages you learn, I feel the better life can be for you. And that's something we're trying to press in our own country. Posters, I saw so much work that went into it, especially QRs. I was so impressed with that. I never thought to use that. I also love the fact that there was a door. Somebody had created a poster with a door. With the amount of work that a lot of people put into it. The other thing that we loved was the great research that was there. It was extremely informative and relevant. And the workshops let us think in a new way. You know, we come with a perspective from the US. It was great to get a perspective from other countries, which we saw, especially because the classroom environments and everything else is so different. So really, my only regret about this conference was that it was not long enough that we could see more of the workshops as well as more of the research. So on behalf of the Relo office, myself and Nikki, thank you for having us. It was such a pleasure to just allow us and to have us here. Thank you.
Yes, I'll just add on to that. I actually have only been in India for 4 months. Visakhapatnam is where I am living and teaching at St. Joseph's College for Women. But this was not my first time to India, so I have been here several times. But really, you're walking kind of in the middle of my dream. And so I might get a little bit emotional. And that is that for years, and especially when I was working on my master's, I just kept thinking, I want to teach teachers. And there's something about India that I feel like that I have something to give to them, to share. And actually, I don't feel like I gave nearly enough this weekend, yesterday and today. I received such a great deal from all of you. Your warm welcomes and the learning experiences at your paper presentations, culture presentations, and the workshop. I really am and hope to be, and you can tell by the white hair, a lifelong learner. And so this was just an extension. I have to agree with something else that Eileen said, and that is, I don't think that you should make the conference longer, because I know what happens with longer conferences, but maybe a little bit more condensed. It was too much. I was a little bit overwhelmed by so many choices of things. But I understand you only do this every 2 years, so that's difficult. So I'll leave that problem to you, Amal. But I just enjoyed the opportunity to come and to share and to give a little bit and to learn and even to take pictures. That was even fun. And to meet you and to see and hear what you're doing. And the finale here with Jason was tremendous, and I am so glad that he has taken the time and is still taking the time to learn from you, because I love the theme, of course, of multilingualism. I was raised in a monolingual home, but Telugu is my 5th language. So I'm still learning, and let's just hope that I can keep learning. So I will ask you, so I'm happy to be with you, and thank you for the invitation. And I hope now we are going to just bring India to the place that I know India is supposed to be, with its people and its next generation. And you're wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot. For the next stage, may I request Professor Rubina Khan, Dr. Jacqueline Amaral, and Dr. Dharmendra Sheikh. And we are not going to ask you to speak, so be relaxed. Is Rubina there? Geeta, could you please join us? Sorry for the last minute change. One of the requests I would have to all the distinguished guests on class is to hand over the outstanding presentation awards. But just a quick word about that. We deliberately don't use the word best presentations. And the quality of the presentations is not the essential or the most important criterion for choosing this presentation, because honestly, it's a problem of plenty for us. Lots and lots of wonderful, fantastic presentations, lots of great ideas, amazing posters, very interactive, influencer workshops, papers, etc. So those which we have chosen are not necessarily the best. On what basis do we choose them? There are several things that come together. One is people who are working in difficult circumstances, people who are practicing teachers with limited research or presentation experience, people who are using local resources, local economies to create things, people who are bringing up innovative original ideas to address them. All these things matter more. Secondly, although there are 2-3 stages of scrutiny when you submit your abstract, scrutiny when the abstracts go to peer review committee, scrutiny when your presentations are very discreetly and unknowingly attended, observed. But in spite of that, we very clearly give preference to those presentations about which we voluntarily get feedback from others. So during the breaks, we keep hearing all the AINET team members collect those feedbacks, unsolicited feedback. That's an important thing. So when people come and just information, I went to a fantastic workshop. Oh, there is a fabulous poster there. Nobody has broached the topic. Someone says, shares, feels like sharing, talking about that voluntarily, that matters. So we are just recognizing few of them. So those who are chosen does not mean others were poor. But it means that there are some seeds there which will grow among the individuals who are chosen, but also inspire more seeds. So it's a recognition of those individuals, but also a general chosen, but also inspire more seeds. So it's a recognition of those individuals, but also a general representative recognition and request to. The first is Justina Gray. Is she there? She presented. Is she there? She presented male and female learners towards ESL and EFL in Oman. She is not here, but this will be, I think we will leave it with VC because it's easier for her to collect from. Second is a joint presentation by Mohammad Harun Kohi and G. Suvarna Lakshmi. And they talked about multinational thoughts and perceptions on the use of L1 in EFL, ESL classrooms. Not here? They missed this fabulous chance. Person is Alifia for her presentation on target in learning. In learning. The next person is Pratibha Zadav for her presentation on teaching language skills by ICT. The next person is Narayan C. Mangalram for the presentation Art Integrated Learning Approach for Joyful English Learning. Narayan Mangalram. Is he there? Oh, he's coming. He's taking a longer route. Oh, this is, yeah. Narayan's brother is accepting on his behalf. Sanjay Jagtap for his innovative magic English alphabet for pre-primary kids.
Wow.
Miyazi Hazam for his presentation on rethinking the canon, teaching literature at the higher level. Not here. Next one is J. Appaswamy and S. K. Akram. And there are two for two of them. On behalf of Akram as well. Finally, so you present both of them. And finally, Ms. Rohini Sangpal for developing teachers' interest in classroom research. Thank you very much. Yeah. Before we move on to Lucky Draw now, I would just like to remind you that for those who want to take home the badges as souvenirs, it's absolutely fine. But if you want to participate in the Lucky Draw, this is the last chance to put your badge in the box. Meanwhile, I will be proposing the vote of thanks on behalf of AINET. We would like to really genuinely thank several agencies, several people, and lots of teams who contributed to the success of this event. We are highly grateful to Engineering College, the President, Vice President, Secretary of the Vasily Academy of Education, especially the fantastic staff of the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, Dr. Jacqueline Amral, Mr. K. Sunan Emmanuel, Dr. Ruby Lois, K. Jhasirani, G. Meena, Sheila Rani Simon, and Arpita Panda.
Excellent team, excellent work.
And if you haven't seen them very frequently, that proves that they were extremely silently and very diligently working behind the screen. We are grateful to all the guests who were here during inauguration. We are also highly grateful to our panelists, Mark Levy and Jason Anderson, our panelists, and the moderator of the panel, Professor Geeta Dorairajan, the presenters, delegates, workshop presenters, poster presenters. All of you have been extremely valuable component because you are the people who added value to this entire event. British Council and RILO have been constant source and in so many different ways that is difficult for me to enlist all of them. So I will say a general word of thanks to both the agencies, to their directors, to their officers, and also the people who are representing over here. Our thanks are due to all the sponsors who have supported us in different ways, and all the technical and administrative help that we got from the Vasily College of Engineering. I would like to take a moment to invite all the volunteers here in front because they were the backbone. Please come to the front. All the volunteers, come here. Come to the front. Let us not forget that they all have been and still are students of English. And they had a good opportunity to settle accounts with their teachers. They did not. And they have been so supportive, so cooperative. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much. One very significant difference in this conference from all the previous conferences was an outcome of a project that I has decided to planned way increase its presence and outreach on social media. And AINET is very proud to have built a small AINET Connect team, have been extremely vibrantly presented on all that hold of and taken bite in the journalistic sense. And lots of you were interviewed, lots of photos taken, shared everywhere. And this team had been working on their plans for a long time. And may I request the AINET Connect team to come to the front and their leader team, and the third person unfortunately could not be here for some family reasons, Dr. Vivek Joshi, and the entire AINET team. Please come for a quick moment here. This is a year-long project in which we not only want to increase. This is a year-long project in which we not only want to increase the management and media policy for AINET. And lest we forget, let us remember that the people you are looking at are all primary and secondary teachers. So they are working teachers, they are doing all their teaching and everything, but they have learned quite a few things in terms of technology and they're sharing this to support AINET. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, AINET team.
And can we propose a vote of thanks to AINET?
To ourselves, for all of ourselves, yes. So let's clap for ourselves. And finally, I would like to apologize if I have forgotten any names. I have forgotten any names. I forgot to mention the contribution of everyone and every agency who directly or indirectly supported us. Now over to the lucky draw, and I hand over to the team.
Any more badges?
Sorry about that slight change of plan. The Vasari College of Engineering would also like to express their gratitude to you. So please bear with us for a few minutes more. Dr. T. Sunal Emmanuel will propose the
Years. He's got one beautiful quotation, and when Jason Anderson was speaking, the humility in his voice compelled me to think of Pata Hotel. The quote, kindness is a man's memorial, long after the function is over. At the end of the day, in our journey as teachers, it's only the kindness that we show to one another, and it's most importantly, that people will remember. And therefore, on behalf of the Humanities and Social Sciences Department, College of Engineering, I consider it a privilege to thank, it's very, very random, the Computer Center of Varsity College of Engineering, the Maintenance Cell, Marble Hospitality, Technicians and Logistics Department of VCE, Cambridge University Press, OU, all the wonderful teaching and non-teaching staff of our college, and of course, the relentless support and kindness shown by INET team the last 4-5 months since the day the conference was realized at VCE. And we would also like to thank profusely the principal of Varsity College of Engineering, beloved Dr. Ramana Garu, and the management of Varsity College of Engineering. And our gratitude also to all the resource persons, the plenary speakers, the delegates from India and abroad, evaluators, and facilitators. We also would like to thank the print and electronic media for covering the conference, the heads of all the departments at the Varsity College of Engineering, and the directors. And to end, one quote: learning is not attained by chance. It must be sought for with ardor and attended to with diligence. Jacqueline ma'am asked me to share this with you. We all hope at Varsity College of Engineering that more and more such conferences should happen, and you should all come more and more frequently to VC. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. So, all prayers. Yeah. All these gifts are sponsored by the Regional English Language Office of US Embassy Delhi. So we thank RELO officer and RELO team. Thank
Close your eyes.
from Bharat Chavan, Thane. I request Jacqueline ma'am. Give it to Bharat Chavan. Mr. Satish Thakre, Mumbai. Next is Komal Markam. Komal Markam from Chhattisgarh. Began Chhattisgarh. Next is Harsha, Mumbai. Next.
Next is again Mumbai, Pratibha Dhole. Next is Maharashtra again, Satish Boyer. Next is Preeti Wagmare, Akola. Enough for Maharashtra. Nitesh Matte, Chandrapur. Pallavi, Ratnagiri. Bahadur Singh Chauhan. Ranvirkar Vittal Rao, Nanded. So that was a Maharashtra lot. So now we will go to some other state. We will go to Gujarat. Dharmendra sir, pick some. Pick four. Gujarat people, keep fingers crossed.
Complimentary viewers. Yeah. Do something for minority.
Relief. Mirza Borhan Iflu. So he's from Afghanistan. Dhanesh Sinha, Chhattisgarh. Rohini Sanpal, but you have already won the prize. So now, praise. Nandkishore Vardalwar, Chandrapur. Because in second board we have some prizes. Nemish
Congratulations.
Manisha Manohar, Thane. Machindra Borade, Mumbai. Shubhangi Pankule, Nagpur. Vidarbha. Rahul Kharade, Ahmednagar. And Lahu Borate, Hanuman Nagar. Ahmednagar. Lahu. Happy birthday, Lahu sir. These are set of posters, and these are sponsored by Relo. And on behalf of Relo, one set of posters is for our hosts, VC, and we are left with three more posters. First set of posters goes to Pradeep Kriplani, Wisdom Academy, Jodhpur, Rajasthan. Anamika from Maulana Abul Kalam University of Technology. And last, to our AINET Connect team, Chanki Kumar Shahane. Yes, everybody. Thank you very much. I request Ali and Vicky to hand over the set of posters to Dr. Jacqueline Amaral ma'am on behalf of Relo to the VCE.
I just request one moment of I now call upon Mohammad Harun Kori from Afghanistan, who received the presentation award. So can I call on you on the stage? Thank you very much. And we hereby conclude the conference. Three quick things. Number one, if you have got printed questionnaire from Alex and you haven't returned it, please do so before you leave. Number two, poster presenters, your certificates are downstairs. Please do remember to collect them. And number three, have a wonderful cup of tea or coffee. It's waiting for you downstairs. Have a nice time. See you in 2022. Tentatively 7th and 8th January. See you there.